Today, we are diving into something huge happening in Bangladesh. It's a massive policy shift that's basically throwing open the doors to the country's energy market. We're talking about a brand new playground for private companies and, most importantly, for green power.
So let's just start with a really simple question. Imagine you're running a big factory in Bangladesh, maybe one that makes clothes for export. Could you just decide, you know what, I want to buy my electricity directly from that specific new solar farm?
For years, for decades, the answer to that question was a hard no. But thanks to a new policy, it's now a clear, resounding yes. And that one little word, well, it changes absolutely everything for the future of energy in Bangladesh. All right, let's get into it. Here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with this green power revolution. Then we'll look at why the old system just wasn't working anymore. We'll meet the new kid on the block, the merchant power plant, and understand how the market is being totally rewired. And finally, we'll explore the incredible impact this has for Bangladesh's future and touch on the super exciting idea of trading green energy. First up, this green power revolution. So the government has just greenlit the Policy for Enhancement of Private Participation in the Renewable Energy-based Power Generation 2025. Yeah, it's a mouthful, I know, but the idea behind it is truly revolutionary. It's all about opening the door for private companies to sell green energy directly to other private companies. But to really get why this is such a game changer, we first have to understand what was wrong with the old way of doing things. What were the cracks in the old system that made this massive change so necessary? This slide really lays out the perfect storm of reasons. For starters, the subsidies were just getting out of hand. The government simply couldn't afford to keep paying the high fixed prices to private power producers. Then you had a major Supreme Court ruling in 2024 that completely blew up the old method for making power deals. On top of that, you've got huge international market pressure. Think big clothing brands telling their Bangladeshi suppliers, hey, we need our products made with green energy. And finally, all of this lines up perfectly with the government's own goals to switch to renewables.
And what's really fascinating here is just how fast all the dominoes fell. The old model was set up way back in 1996. A 2010 law kind of put it on steroids, but the real bombshell was in 2024 when the Supreme Court struck down that law. Suddenly, there was this huge policy vacuum, which led directly to this brand new 2025 policy and the creation of a whole new type of power plant.
So let's meet the star of the show. Section 3. Enter the merchant power plant. This is the absolute centerpiece, the core of this new green energy market in Bangladesh. So what in the world is a merchant power plant, or MPP? Well, it's pretty simple. It's a privately owned plant that generates electricity only from renewable sources like solar or wind. And here's the kicker. It sells that power directly to big customers through a private, negotiated contract. The key phrase to remember, no government middleman. And this is how it works, and it's actually pretty straightforward. Step 1, the MPP makes green electricity. Step 2, it signs a direct contract with, say, a large factory. And step 3, it just uses the existing public power grid to send the electricity to its customer. For a country that's so used to a centralized system, this is a much more flexible and dynamic way of doing business. Okay, so let's move on and see how this all really connects. Section 4 is all about rewiring the power market. You might be wondering, how exactly does the electricity get from the producer to the consumer if the government isn't managing every single step? Well, the key concept that makes this whole thing possible is called wheeling of power. Now, it sounds a little technical, but it's really not. It's just the act of sending electricity from point A, the power plant, to point B, the factory, using the public transmission lines that are already there.
The easiest way to picture this is to think of the national grid like a public highway for electricity. The government still owns the highway, right? But now, private power companies can pay a toll to use that highway to deliver their electricity directly to a specific customer's front door. Simple as that.
So this comparison is really the crucial point. In the old system, private producers could only sell to the government, period. Now, in the new MPP model, they sell directly to other private companies, and they negotiate their own prices. This is a seismic shift. We're going from a single-buyer system to a competitive, open market. The power is literally shifting. Now, you might be asking, what if one of these new plants has some extra power? Well, the policy says they can sell a little bit of it, up to 20% of what they produce each month, to the public utility. And this is a really critical detail because it makes sure that these new plants are focused first and foremost on serving the new private market, not just on becoming another government supplier. Okay, so we get the mechanics. Now for what I think is the most important part. What's the real-world impact? Section 5, Impact on Bangladesh's Future. Who are the big winners here, and why does this matter for the whole economy? This quote, and this is pulled directly from the policy itself, really says it all. It says that local export industries have to use green energy to remain in the business. Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't just about being eco-friendly. For Bangladesh's most important industries, this is about pure economic survival. So who wins big with this new policy? Well, first, the export industries. They can now prove to their international buyers that their products are made with clean power. Second, private investors. They now have this massive, untapped market for renewable energy projects, which could create a boom. Third, large consumers, who can finally shop around for reliable, green power, potentially at better prices. And finally, the government of Bangladesh, which gets to seriously reduce the massive cost of power subsidies. It's really a win-win-win-win situation. But believe it or not, the policy actually goes a step further. It's really looking towards the future of green finance. Section 6, Trading in Green Energy, which introduces us to the next frontier, something called Renewable Energy Certificates. A Renewable Energy Certificate, or REC, is a fascinating idea. It's basically a tradable item that represents the greenness of electricity. So for every megawatt hour of green power an MMP produces, it can get one of these certificates. The certificate is separate from the actual electricity itself, and it can be bought and sold on its own. And here's how it's supposed to work. The MPP generates clean power and gets these certificates. They can then turn around and sell those certificates to other companies that want to prove their own green credentials, even if they can't buy the green power directly. The government is planning to build an entire trading system for this, creating a brand new market just for environmental value. And all of this brings us to our final big picture question. This isn't just a small tweak to the rules, it's a fundamental rewiring of a nation's economy and its environmental strategy. So could this policy actually be the thing that transforms Bangladesh into a leader in the global green economy? It is a bold, audacious move, and you can be sure the rest of the world will be watching very closely to see how it plays out.